Stride Audio Show.
Presented by Speak English with Us.
Quick question. When a real person asks you something in English, do you freeze for a second or do you lose the whole sentence?
And be honest, do you suddenly become fluent only after the moment has passed? That tiny delay is brutal.
This is a B1 level episode, perfect for intermediate learners. Beginners, you're welcome too.
And there's one thing we discovered. You're not bad at English. You're often practicing the wrong kind of English.
You know that feeling. You're in an app. Everything looks fine. Every answer feels clear. Then a shop assistant says, "Can I help you?" And your mind goes blank.
Or the clinic calls, the delivery app glitches, or someone says, "Just reply in the group chat," and suddenly you're sweating like you've been asked to give a speech.
That's the real gap. In practice, you're solving a neat little puzzle. But in life, you need to keep the conversation moving.
Right, because real English isn't about perfect sentences. It's about quick response, timing, and knowing how to adjust when the situation changes.
Today's episode is about using AI roleplay to train that exact skill. The skill is sounding ready when life doesn't give you time to prepare.
So instead of memorizing a long list of model answers, you'll learn how to sort out a scene, confirm the goal, and keep going when the other person says something unexpected.
And yes, your brain may try to act dramatic at first. Mine does that too. Like it's auditioning for a disaster movie.
Mine too. It hears one simple question and goes, "Hold on, I need a committee meeting."
If that sounds familiar, stay with us. We'll show you how to turn one real situation into a short training loop that actually sticks.
And later, we'll give you one tiny trick for making your practice feel more like a live conversation and less like homework.
Stay until the end for our Word Tour 5 expressions you'll hear in real conversations all the time.
And while you're listening, notice how often your own brain does this. It understands, but it hesitates to speak.
Let's start with the real problem. You can understand English, but you can't always grab the right words fast enough.
Exactly. And that's why AI roleplay helps. It gives you a live feeling without the pressure of a real stranger watching you.
Picture this. You're booking a doctor appointment, and the time changes. In an app, you'd maybe read it twice, but in real life, you have to answer now.
And if your brain is like mine, it starts a tiny panic show. Wait, what's the polite version? What's the clear version? What's the version that doesn't sound weird?
That panic show is very familiar. The fix is not to memorize 10 perfect lines. It's to train your brain to sort out the situation first.
Right. Before you speak, ask 4 quiet questions. What's my purpose? Who am I talking to? What's the tone? And what key words do I need?
Let's use a simple example. You're texting a hotel and the room date is wrong. Your purpose is to change it. Your object is the receptionist. Your tone is polite but direct. And your keywords might be date, booking, and confirm.
So in AI, you type the scene, and the AI plays the receptionist. Then you answer in one short round. No need to sound perfect. Just need to sound clear.
The first round is only about being understood. You can say, "Hi, I'd like to change my booking." That's enough.
Good. Simple, direct, no extra drama. If the AI asks for details, you can say, "Yes, the 12th isn't right. Can you confirm the new date?"
That's already real communication. And notice how the word confirm fits naturally there.
Exactly. And if the date has to change because your flight changed, you can say, "Please adjust the booking." That's the kind of phrase you want to retrieve fast.
The magic isn't that the sentence is fancy. The magic is that your mouth doesn't stall while your brain is still building the sentence.
Yes, because in real life, nobody stands there applauding your grammar. They just want the message.
Let's do a second case, a group chat at work. Your boss says, "Can you join earlier?" If you've only practiced textbook questions, that moment feels huge.
Huge enough to make you stare at the screen like it's a cryptic museum exhibit.
So you train with AI, can I join 10 minutes later? Or I can join at 3:30 instead. You don't need a long speech.
And if they ask why, you can hold on to the main point and say, I'm finishing another call. Short, useful, human.
This is where retrieval practice matters. That's the idea of pulling language out of memory instead of just recognizing it on a page.
Right? Seeing a phrase and saying, yes, I know that, isn't enough. You need to look at a scene and actually retrieve the phrase under pressure.
So the training loop is simple. Scene 1, one purpose. Scene 2, one response. Scene 3, one small change.
Basically, you're building a tiny conversation, Jim, but without the sweaty strangers and the bad lighting.
Speak for yourself, Leo. You'd bring the bad lighting somehow.
True, I'd overthink the lamp placement before I answered the question.
Here's why this works. AI can repeat the same scene again and again, so your brain stops treating the situation like a surprise.
And after a few rounds, you start to notice patterns. The same request, the same apology, the same little shift in tone.
For example, if the AI says, sorry, the earlier time isn't available, you can say, no problem, let's sort out another option.
Nice. And if the app message is unclear, you can say, could you hold on a second? That buys you time without sounding lost.
That's such a useful move. Not a pause of failure, but a pause with purpose.
Exactly. You're not stalling, you're managing the conversation.
And that's the emotional shift we want. You're not waiting for perfect English to arrive like a taxi.
You're already in the car. You just need to choose the right turn before the light changes.
So, if you're practicing tonight, don't choose 10 scenes. Choose one, maybe a canceled appointment, maybe a late delivery, maybe a quick message to a colleague.
Then ask the AI to push back a little, just enough to make you think. That pressure is good, because it feels like light.
And when you hear a phrase you like, repeat it out loud 3 times. Not forever, just enough to make it feel available.
Then swap the scene tomorrow. Same skill, new setting. That's how English starts to feel reusable instead of fragile.
And by the way, there is a phrase for this whole process. It's called follow-up. We'll break it down later.
For now, just remember, one scene, one goal, one reply. Then you build from there.
Here's the big question. Does AI roleplay actually help, or does it just make people feel productive?
I think it helps a lot. If you can handle 10 short AI chats, you're already building a stronger response reflex than most app drills give you.
I can see why you'd say that, but I'm not fully convinced because a lot of learners hide inside the app and never face real humans.
That's fair, but the app isn't the destination. It's the training field. You're not supposed to live there.
Still, there's a risk. If the AI is too patient, too clear, and too forgiving, you might learn a fake comfort zone.
That's a good point. But the answer isn't to ditch the method. It's to make the AI less predictable and more realistic.
So you're saying the problem isn't AI itself? It's how people use it?
Exactly. If you ask for the same easy sentence every time, of course you get shallow practice. But if you force the AI to change the pace, the tone, and the request, now you're training real adaptability.
I still think many learners use it like a script reader. They memorize one answer, and the second the situation changes, they collapse.
Guilty. I've done that. I once practiced a perfect restaurant reply, and then the waiter asked a follow-up question. I looked like I'd been unplugged.
Exactly. That moment is where real English lives. So if the practice doesn't include a curveball, it's only half useful.
Then let's make the curveball part of the system. You don't just rehearse the answer. You rehearse the adjustment.
I like that word, adjust, because real conversation is never fixed. The flight changes, the meeting changes, the person changes their mind, and your sentence has to change with them.
Right. And that's why I tell learners to start with a clear scene, then let the AI interrupt them. If the AI says, actually, that time isn't available, you can't stay on your original line.
But there's another issue. Some learners get so focused on sounding natural that they freeze. They keep waiting for the perfect line.
And that's exactly why I'd push back a little. Waiting for perfect fluency is a trap. You're not writing a novel. You're keeping a conversation alive.
That's true, but I still think people need emotional safety first. If the practice feels too harsh, they'll quit.
Fair. So the sweet spot is controlled pressure. Enough challenge to stretch you, not enough to break you.
Let's test that idea with a real scene. Imagine your dentist texts, "Can we move your appointment to Thursday?"
I'd say, sure, can you confirm the new time? Short, calm, useful.
Nice. But what if the AI replies, "Thursday morning only, and you need afternoon"?
Then I'd say, hold on. I can't make morning. Can we sort out another option?
Good. That's the kind of move people need, because it keeps the thread alive.
And notice how sort out isn't about solving everything in one magical sentence. It means working through the problem step by step.
But here's my pushback. If a learner only practices with AI, they might sound neat inside the simulation and still hesitate in a live conversation.
I don't buy that as a reason to avoid AI. That's like saying you shouldn't rehearse driving because real traffic is harder. The rehearsal doesn't replace the road. It prepares you for it.
That's a strong analogy, but live conversations also have pressure you can't fully copy. The face, the pause, the awkward silence. Those things matter.
Totally. So the method should include a bridge. After the AI reply, you record yourself, replay it, and follow up with one better version the next day.
Now we're getting somewhere, so the point isn't only the first answer, it's the follow-up, the second pass, the repair.
Yes, and that second pass is where growth happens. You hear your own wording, adjust it, and make it cleaner next time.
I can accept that. But I still want learners to remember that AI isn't the goal. Real interaction is the goal.
100%. AI is just the rehearsal partner that never gets tired, never rolls its eyes, and never says, let's circle back next week.
That's a gift, honestly. A very patient partner with no coffee break.
And no dramatic sighs when you ask for the same question again.
So maybe the real debate isn't AI versus real life. It's whether the practice makes real life easier.
Exactly. If the scene is clear, the pressure is controlled, and the language gets reused in new settings, then yes, it helps.
And if learners remember to make the task smaller, one goal, one response, one follow-up, they'll feel less overwhelmed.
Right. The method works when it's designed to train retrieval, not just recognition.
So you're saying the problem isn't that people don't know enough English? It's that they can't pull it out fast enough.
That's exactly it. An AI roleplay gives them a place to pull, fail, adjust, and try again without the social panic.
I can live with that, not because AI is magic, but because repetition under pressure changes the way language shows up in your head.
And that's the whole win. You stop translating everything from scratch and start responding more like yourself.
So we've seen the problem, the practice, and the debate. Now let's open the toolbox.
Right, because those 5 phrases kept showing up naturally while we talked through the scene.
And each one helps you move faster in real conversation, not just in practice.
Exactly. So let's break them down and hear how they work in context.
When we talked about that appointment change, one phrase popped up naturally. Adjust.
Yeah, and it's such a useful one because it means to change something a little so it fits better.
Exactly. You don't need a dramatic rewrite every time. If the time doesn't work, you adjust the booking. If the message feels too formal, you adjust the tone.
I like that because it sounds calm, not chaotic. You're not rebuilding the whole house. You're moving the chair so people can sit.
That's a very Leo image. And in English, that word often shows quiet control, not panic.
Right. You can say, I'll adjust my schedule, or we need to adjust the plan. Short, natural, and very useful.
And then we add confirm. That one is everywhere in real life, especially when details matter.
Yes. To confirm means to check and make sure something is correct. If you're booking a table, you might say, can you confirm the time?
Or in a message, just confirming our meeting. That's simple, but it sounds clear and grown up.
Way better than guessing and showing up at the wrong time, like a confused extra in someone else's day.
We've all done that at least once. And notice how confirm fits with real pressure? Not big drama, just everyday uncertainty.
Exactly. It gives you a clean checkpoint before things go wrong.
Now, hold on is interesting because it feels very small, but it does a lot of work.
It buys you time. In conversation, hold on can mean, wait a second, or let me think.
And that's perfect when your brain needs half a breath, not a full breakdown.
Especially when the app sends 3 messages at once and your brain acts like a browser with too many tabs open.
That's painfully accurate. You can say, hold on, let me check, or hold on, I need a second.
It keeps the conversation alive while you gather yourself. That's a very practical social move.
Then there's sort out, which is such a strong real-life phrase.
Yeah, it means to organize, fix, or resolve a messy situation. You don't just solve an equation. You sort out a problem.
Like, let's sort out the time, or we need to sort out the details. It sounds active and flexible.
And it carries the feeling of working through a mess without pretending the mess isn't there.
That's why it feels so human. Real conversations are often messy. And this phrase says you're staying with the problem.
Right? You're not escaping it. You're making progress inside it.
Finally, follow up. This one matters a lot after the conversation ends.
Absolutely. To follow up means to check back later, send another message, or continue the conversation after the first round.
So after the doctor changes your appointment, you might follow up with a quick message to confirm the new time.
Or after the meeting, you follow up with an email. Short, polite, and useful.
I like that it shows continuity. English isn't only about the first reply. It's about what happens next.
Exactly. And that's why this word pairs so well with retrieval practice. You hear a situation, pull out the phrase, then follow up later and use it again.
So if we zoom out, these 5 phrases all do one thing. They help you stay in motion.
Yes, adjust when things change. Confirm when you need certainty. Hold on when you need a second. Sort out when things get messy. Follow up when the conversation needs a next step.
And none of them sound stiff when you use them in real situations.
Which is the whole win. You're not translating a textbook. You're speaking like a person.
That's the feeling we wanted from the episode.
Exactly. Little phrases, big confidence.
So, let's pull this together. Real English gets easier when you stop treating every moment like a test.
Right, we talked about the gap between understanding and speaking, and how AI roleplay can close that gap with pressure that's still safe.
The big idea was simple. Start with one scene, one purpose, one reply. Then repeat until it feels less fragile.
And use those 5 phrases as your anchors. Adjust, confirm, hold on, sort out, and follow up, because they show up in exactly the kind of moments that used to slow you down.
If you want to try this tonight, pick just one situation, maybe a meeting change, a delivery issue, or a short message to a colleague.
Then keep the first round short. Don't chase perfection. Just aim to be understood. After that, listen back and notice one phrase that sounds more natural.
My favorite part is the second pass. That's where the language starts to feel like yours, not something you're borrowing from a workbook.
Exactly. And I've done this myself. I once practiced one tiny apology line 10 times, and the 11th time it finally sounded like a real person, not a robot in a hurry.
That's the shift we want, not more pressure, better practice.
And if you want a simple routine, use 3 minutes, 1 scene, and 1 follow-up replay. That's enough to build momentum without overwhelming yourself.
Next time, we can take this even further and look at how to make AI roleplay feel more like a real back and forth, with better prompts and sharper responses.
That'll be fun, because once you know the structure, you can train almost any everyday situation.
Thanks for spending this time with us, and keep noticing the moments when your English is already there, just waiting to come out.
Try one small scene this week and let it surprise you.